What are the flippin' chances that out of all of these games in this game room, that the 5 that were picked for me to play all came from sequential game generations? We've got a 9th generation game, an 8th generation game, a 7th, a 6th generation game, and a freaking handheld game. Every one of them's completely different, totally random. Of course, that's what I'm all about. Hey guys, I'm RNG Gamer. I play all of my games randomly, and welcome to Beating the Backlog, the show where I tell you about the 5 games that I beat recently and let you know what I think about them. Let's start in the front and work our way back to a bona fide classic, a game I have wanted to play for over 20 years. You know when you listen to like a new song and the whole thing's fine, but there's one little part of the song that's amazing, like 10 out of 10, like the coolest thing you could ever imagine, and you wish the rest of the song was like that? Well, that's what this game is like to me. It's Super Mario Wonder. Now, this game didn't get picked randomly for me to play. Instead, it was selected by my daughter. She's 10 years old, and in this gameplay footage, it will be of us playing it together. So, if you see somebody doing really poorly, that's me, and she's the one who's doing a good job. This game caught everyone off guard. And a lot of people thought it would really suck because the last several 2D Mario platformers weren't that spectacular. But this ended up being one of the best 2D Mario games of all time, according to a lot of people. Like I mentioned, I played this with my daughter, and there are some good things about that. There are some bad things. A good thing is that it's a great bonding experience, and she loved it and thought it was really whimsical, and so did I. The bad part of it is when one person runs ahead, the other person has a hard time keeping up with it. She's not used to holding down the fire button and running and jumping the way you do in Mario games. She wants to take her time, and this isn't the kind of game where you take your time. It wants you to speed through. It wants you to have those Mario skills already built up if you're gonna play it with a group of people. And she just didn't have them. So there were some tears to be had playing this, but we did finish it. We had a great time. And I went back after we beat it and I did all the super secret levels and I streamed those. You can see the videos of those on my second channel, RNG Gaming. That's right, did you know I have a second channel where I actually play games? If you want more content that's a little bit different than this, more intimate, something to put on the background, go check out RNG Gaming. That's in the description down below. It's a lot of fun over there. So the story in this one it's pretty straight-laced for a Mario game, but it is a little different. Instead of Princess Peach getting kidnapped, Bowser has literally turned into the castle. So you have to collect these Wonder Seeds to free his grasp over the land. Now, the gameplay is what you'd expect. It's 2D Mario. You can collect power-ups, you can run and jump, you can wall jump, all those sort of things. But there are these badges in this game, and they give you special abilities and weaknesses for some of them. If you want to make the game more challenging, there are badges that do that. There's like a double wall jump and underwater dash. There's a high jump, a levitate, all kinds of things that can help you. And the game kind of is designed around you utilizing these badges to make it doable. Now, you can play this up to 4 players. Unlike some of the other previous ones where you can pick each other up and throw each other and all that sort of stuff, you can't do that in this one. Your sprites, while they interact with the environment around them, they don't really interact with each other. And that's a good thing because that makes it a lot harder. Now you're running through the levels, you're trying to get over the platforming challenges, you're trying to stomp the Goombas, you're stomping turts. But the gimmick is that in every single stage is a hidden item called a Wonder Flower. When you get a Wonder Flower, the game basically it trips out. It changes the gameplay and it goes super zany. And this is the part of the game that is like the 10 out of 10. I love the Wonder Flower sections, and I am so impressed by what Nintendo did with these ideas. They really had so many groundbreaking and unusual things that they did. I'm blown away by their creativity. You can always count on Nintendo to do something really creative, and boy do they do that in this. If you're able to beat the Wonder Flower section, you'll be granted a Wonder Seed, which is this game's version of stars. You'll also get one for finishing the level. And you gather these Wonder Seeds up and you turn them in to unlock the next stage. some stages will require you to have 16 Wonder Seeds or something like that. We just went through and collected all of them on every stage, so we never had an issue not having enough to progress, but I could imagine that a small kid playing this could have some difficulties getting enough Wonder Seeds to progress, and they might have to get mom or dad to come help them out. As for the presentation of this game, it's Nintendo. The music is incredible, as it is in like every flippin' Mario game, and the graphics are bright and they're colorful. When you trip out on the Wonder Flower, it can be really spectacular. But the game's graphics do look like Mario, and they don't do much to stand out other than it just being Mario. Anybody can look at this and know immediately in 1 second what kind of game this is. Excluding, of course, the Wonder Flower sections. Now, honestly, if it weren't for the Wonder Flowers, this game would be pretty forgettable. There's nothing to set it apart from the other 2D Mario games of the last couple generations. But their presence is what really carries the game. And while they're usually really cool set pieces and they break up the monotony of the rest of the game, they don't really provide much challenge or are more of a spectacle than anything. Most of the challenge comes from trying to locate them in the levels, and they can be pretty well hidden. There are a few times we couldn't locate one, although there are clues and they seem obvious after the fact, and we had to look up on a walkthrough where the Wonder Flower was. So once again, I could see a young kid getting stuck not being able to find the Wonder Flower in a stage. But other than just those few times, it's usually pretty obvious where they are, or they're just right out in the open. Fortunately, for those who do want a challenge, there are unlockable star worlds in this game. And it's pretty tough, but not as hard as I was expecting. And most of the game, honestly, is just a walk in the park compared to most 2D platformers, especially if you're a veteran to the series. So my final thoughts on Mario Wonder. Well, I do think it's one of the better 2D Mario games I've ever played. It's very good, but the modern 2D games, they don't really hold a candle to the 3D Mario games. I think that Mario Odyssey on the Switch is a much better game than Mario Wonder. I don't think they're even in the same ballpark, honestly. The Wonder Flower segments are really cool, and I'm blown away by the sheer creativity of them, but they're really light on like the gameplay challenge. It's more of something you're watching. I think you would get just as much fun out of the Wonder Flower sections watching your friend play the game as you would playing it yourself. So we did beat it. We had a good time with it. I asked my daughter, Mini RNG, what she thought of it. She said she felt it was a 9 out of 10. She's never played any other 2D Mario games before. I don't think this is as good as Super Mario World. I don't think it's as good as Mario 3, but it is very good. I would give Super Mario Wonder an 8 out of 10. It's great, but if you've played a lot of Mario games, I don't know if this one's gonna stick with you that long, other than just the Wonder Flower stuff. But you should give it a shot. The Wonder Flower stuff is worth it by itself.
Please, God, be something good. I need something to lift my spirits. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Let's see. Oh man, oh man. That means we play the oldest game on the backlog. So Darius Burst is what we're going to be playing. Fantastic.
Let's jump back to the previous console generation and talk about a game that's in my favorite genre of all. It's a shoot 'em up. It was put up by Limited Run Games. I have the collector's edition of it, and it's Darius Burst Chronicle Saviours. Normally I'm a big fan of Limited Run Games collector's editions, but this one's not one of their better ones, I have to say. And I did stream my first impressions of this. I, and all the viewers watching, were really overwhelmed by all of the game modes. And I will also say that I was not really enjoying this game until I learned how to use all of the different ships in the game. And they all play very differently. I'll get into that a little bit later. But once I found a few I liked, I was hooked on the game a little bit more. Now, if you've never played the Darius series, the thing you hear about it the most is people arguing over how to pronounce the name. Is it Darius? Is it Darius? Is it Darius? I've heard all of these. I don't know what it is, and I've never heard a consensus on it. We're just gonna go with Darius, because it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. It sounds more sophisticated. But the series is centered around just standard side-scrolling fare. And most of the enemies are spaceships or fish. If you didn't know that, Darius is about fighting fish spaceships. All the enemies are aquatic critters. Turtles, fish, sea anemones, nautilusi, nautiluses, of course, duh, starfish, all that sorts of crabs, lobsters. those sort of things. If you're into killing aquatic animals, you might love Darius. Now, the other claim to fame is that back in the 80s, when these were arcade games, they had like 3 CRT monitors. So 3 freaking arcade monitors side by side. So it's this huge aspect ratio. I don't know what it is, but it's not like, 16 by 9. It's like 64 by 9 or something like that. I don't know what it is. It's crazy. And on a modern setup, it looks really cool, although it is like ultra super mega letterboxed. The other thing that Darius does is it allows you to select routes through stages. So there are 3 starting stages: easy, normal, and hard. And when you get to the end of it, you can go to a harder or a slightly easier stage and route your way to the end, which is a cool idea. I love it. But in this game, it's kind of I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of it. There's only 3 stages, really. You just pick twice, and you can kind of move from easy into normal, or you can move from normal into easy, and you can find your way to the end. But it's not that long. The other issue with this is you don't get a chance to play all the stages and really experience them because they're locked to a specific difficulty, right? If you want to try out one of the hard stages, you can't play it on easy. You can't play it on normal. You've got to select the hard route to try it out. And while that's cool, I really just kind of don't like that. I wish the game, instead of it just being 3 stages selected out of a host of freaking 10 or whatever it is, I wish it was just like 7 good stages in a row that you could play on any difficulty. Now, the gameplay in this is normal. You've got your standard shot. Sometimes you have a secondary shot. There are no bombs in this game, but you do have a laser attack. And some of the ships don't have the laser attack, some do. Some that have the ability to charge up the laser attack and let it out in one huge burst. Some have the ability to leave like a turret basically on the stage that will run till the power runs out. Some can do all 3 of those. Some can do none of those. They have a more powerful regular shot. There's just a lot to learn about the different ships, and I really enjoyed figuring out what they can and can't do. Now, let's talk about some of the aesthetic qualities of this game. The thing that's so crazy about this, and I guess they're all kind of like this, but I forgot about it, is the music selection. It is bonkers. It's the craziest soundtrack you probably ever heard. It has techno, smooth jazz, like ambient avant-garde music, Native American chanting, traditional Chinese music, like heavy metal. It's just so strange. And I guess, like I said, it is the standard for Darius, but I just can't get over it. I just can't get over it. It's cool, it's unique, but it doesn't really do much to like amp up the energy usually. It's usually pretty subdued and trance-like over something that's really pumping and driving and designed to get you moving, right? It's kind of just like weird. You just feel weird. You're like, I don't know what's going on. This is bizarre, and I don't know how I feel about it. Also, I mentioned the really extreme aspect ratio, and I have to say, while it's cool and it's neat to see like ships coming from 3 screen lengths away, I'm just not that big a fan of it. When you sit really close to your monitor, you can't really see the whole field because it's spread out so wide. Your eyes just can't cover that distance. And when you sit far away, I can't really see the bullets. My eyes are old and they suck now. I had a lot more success playing this game sitting and playing it on like a computer monitor than I did on my freaking huge 4K TV because I got to sit like a foot away and not 10 feet away. And I know that this is the traditional way they do it, but I'm not sold on it. That's the way to put it. I'm not sold. It feels like a gimmick over something that really makes the gameplay better. Which leads me to one of the other modes of the game. Now, we've been talking about the arcade mode, but let me tell you about the conquest mode. In this one, it's more of like an adventure game, really. You take on these different groups of challenges and stages from the arcade game to earn money and try to complete even more of the stages. And when I say there's a lot of stages, there are a lot of stages. There are over 1,000 stages, and some of them are twice as long as the actual arcade game. I looked at a guide for this, and people say that this mode can easily take between 60 and 120 hours to complete. That's a lot of content, but there's a problem with it. It's super boring. It's just boring. I could not get into it. It took forever to save up enough money to unlock some of the ships. And when you get the ships, they're almost completely unpowered. You have to buy power-ups for them to level them up, but it only lasts for 1 stage. So you're constantly spending the money you're earning just to like make the ship you've already bought unlockable. Imagine you're playing like Gran Turismo and you save up to buy the car you really want, and then before every stage, you have to pay to upgrade it every time, and the upgrades don't carry over. I don't get that. I don't get that. Now, there are a bunch of other modes in this game. Several. I'm not going to go into all of them, but there's just an insane amount of content here, more than I think I've seen in any other shoot 'em up, and that's saying a lot because I played a lot of shoot 'em ups, but it's just not that engaging to me. There's some online modes that nobody's really playing anymore. The main draw is still just the arcade mode and that conquest mode. Now, I've struggled for years to get into the Darius series, and I have like all of them, but they're just not my favorite. And this one's no different. I think it's a good game, and if you're really into it and you love it, there's plenty here to keep you busy. But compared to some of the other shmups I played recently, this one just doesn't hold a candle to those. I think it's a good game, but it's not a great game. As a matter of fact, I would give Darius Burst Chronicle Saviours a 6 out of 10. It's a good game. I had fun with it. I 1 credit cleared it on normal, the easiest version of normal. Now this next game's from the 7th console generation. I played this back when it came out, but I quit playing it. I gave up on it for some reason. But you guys, the guys that come to my live streams on Tuesdays, you picked this game for me to play. You tipped money to force me to play it. I was scared, but I'm so glad you did. And it's Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. If you haven't put it together, Revengeance is a combination of the word revenge and vengeance. Neither of which seem to have anything to do with this game, but they both sound really cool separately and less cool put together. It's a really kind of a lame name, I'm not gonna lie. Now this was put out by Platinum Games, and I'm a huge fan of Platinum Games. They put out Bayonetta, they put out Mad World, they've done a ton of stuff. The Wonderful 101, and typically I really like their stuff. Some of their games like Vanquish I think are some of the best games in the genre, and then there are other ones I've played that I just could not get into. So I was wondering where this one was going to land. So the story in this one is that you play as Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 2, and I think this takes place between Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5, but I'm not sure because I've never played either one of those games. I haven't gotten to them yet, but it doesn't really even matter, because not even the writer of this game could recount what happens in the story. Most of the Metal Gear Solid games are not known for having a very concise and simple story. And this is the case here, mixed with the insanity that Platinum loves to put in their games. So I guess Raiden starts off as like a bodyguard for the president, and there's a coup, and things go sideways, which leads to Raiden getting his jaw and several other appendages like hacked off. Luckily, at this point in humanity's development, they have developed the ability to turn him into like a cyborg ninja. Thank God we could turn him into a cyborg ninja with a robotic jaw. So they go ahead and they do that, and he sets out to investigate the conspiracy behind the coup, I think, which leads him down a rabbit hole of just the craziest freaking nonsense about orphan children being turned into robot terrorists and murder and treason. But, you know, enough about all that really awesome stuff. Let's talk about the gameplay. So you run around Devil May Cry style, and you hack and slash enemies, and you just hold down R1 to run, and you basically just auto-platform over everything. And you would think that would suck, but it's actually really cool and a lot of fun, and it sends you into like a flow state where you're just focusing on like almost surfing over obstacles in the environment. So one of the benefits of running around in this style is that it affords you the opportunity to kick most of the enemies in the nuts and just like send them shooting up into the air. At that point, you can juggle them with various attacks. And after enough damage, you go into like serial killer mode, I guess, and you zoom in on them where you hack them into like hundreds of pieces by waggling around the right analog stick. And if you hit the highlighted weak point, you rip out their freaking spine and drink their precious body fluids to replenish your health. And you basically chain this crap together for the whole game, and it's freaking awesome. So when the enemies do attack you, you press the attack button and press in the direction the attack's coming from to parry them. You know how cool it is to have the parry button just be your attack button? You don't have to worry about switching buttons to parry. No, you just point in that direction, and it makes you feel like a total badass. Once you parry them, buddy, they're wide open, and you can really deal out some punishment. The combat in this game is just incredible. It's beyond most games I've ever played. And not for 1 second playing it did it ever get boring. I was constantly cracking up by what was happening, and there's a stiff challenge to the game, but it felt just right. You never feel underpowered in this game. You feel super overpowered if you know how to play it, and you feel even more overpowered when you start upgrading yourself. And you'll need to do that because the bosses are no cakewalk. They put up a real challenge. A couple of them took me a few tries, several tries, like an hour's worth of tries to finally take them down. It was hard, but it was very rewarding and totally worth it. Now, as you can see, the game looks pretty good. The character models look decent, but the settings, the environments do have that PS3, Xbox 360 era curse of being super brown and gray all the time. And it was pretty boring, even though there were some Metal Gear Solid style like stealth sections to it. Most of the level traversal wasn't that great, and it felt like it was wasting my time a little bit, just a little bit. The music, on the other hand, is absolutely banging. It's so good. It's rocking, it's epic when it needs to be. It helps out the monotony of the levels when it really kicks in and gets going. And luckily, the game is brief enough at like about 7 hours or so to keep things from really grating on you. So it is a short experience, and the game's designed to play through multiple times and get better and better rankings, like Devil May Cry and most of Platinum's other games. I guess my final conclusion with this is that I really enjoyed this game's combat and the challenge it provided. It felt really fluid, and it made me feel like an actual flippin' ninja. The typical zany nonsense from Metal Gear Solid combined with the craziness of Platinum games was nice. And although I couldn't really follow the plot, and it didn't really make much sense when I did follow it, I still enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the off-the-wall characters. The story, the level design, the environments, they could all use a little bit of work in my opinion. But I think this game can hang in there with some of the best of Platinum's games. I really wish this game would have gotten a sequel. So Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance was a great game. I'm so glad you guys forced me to play it, because I don't know that I ever would have gotten back around to it really. I think Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is an 8 out of 10. It's great. It's a really great game. It's a high 8. You should definitely give it a shot. We've worked our way all the way back to the 6th console generation. The generation that started when I was in college, right when I started college. That was a long time ago. And this game was a launch title for the PlayStation 2. I think it was a launch title. It was close to that window. Don't hold me to that. Don't hold me to that. But it's Shadow Hearts. This game took me forever to finish. When I finished the game, I thought to myself, geez, I bet I've been playing this for like 4 months or something. I looked it up. Dude, I started playing it in freaking November of last year. It's September now. That's 10 months. It took me 10 months to beat this game, which is crazy because it's only freaking 30 hours long. And it's not because it's a bad game. It was just hard to find the time to sit down and play an old school JRPG, which is what this game is. Now, this game was not picked for me to play randomly. I spent a gold star to pick this because it had been on my backlog so long, and so many people were telling me how good it was. So I beat a bunch of games to earn a gold star, and I picked this one from my backlog to dive into. Now, this is the sequel to a very expensive and rare PlayStation 1 game called Kudelka, which I also own. And for some reason, I just dove into Shadow Hearts first without playing Kudelka. I will tell you this, I recommend you play Kudelka first, because a lot of the things that happen in that game, apparently, and I wouldn't know, but it seems like it, they reference it all the freaking time, they carry over to this game, okay? It really is a sequel. Now, the story of this is that you're playing as Yuri, and you have to save Alice, which is the female protagonist in the game. Turns out a bunch of supernatural beings are after her, and you discover that she's the key to some ritual, and you have to stop the ritual from happening. Seems like typical JRPG stuff, right? And it is. Also, there's like some political side plot stuff, and, you know, forces want to open the demon gate to friggin' destroy Japan, who's been threatening invasion to China. There's all this stuff. I mean, it's too hard to go over, right? It's a 30-hour JRPG. I could be here all day explaining to you what's going on to this game, but the story is decent enough, and it did hold my attention, which is saying more for it than it does for a lot of other JRPGs that just bore the ever-loving crap out of me. Now, this is just a turn-based RPG, but it has a really interesting timing mechanic with this wheel thing. And it sort of reminds me of Super Mario RPG, where there's kind of a rhythm game system to it. So when you do an attack or cast a spell or use an item or whatever, this wheel pops up and it has markings on it, and you have to press a button when the little needle goes by these markings. If you hit all of them in the right area, then this attack or whatever will go through. If you miss one, you get penalized. Sometimes the spell won't happen, but if you hit it in like that special red area, you get a bonus to it, and I love it. Now, sometimes the freaking sections are really small and hard to hit. Sometimes the little needle spins really quickly, which can add a lot of tenseness to this game. Also, the enemies love to freaking debuff you to make the wheel really small, or even make the sections on it invisible so you can't see where to click, where you just have to remember. And I actually liked this. It kept the gameplay, in terms of the combat, really engaging and helped keep me awake. Whereas if it's just normal turn-based combat, sometimes I'll fall asleep. As for Yuri, him being the main character, he's a little different. Now, he has these monster souls that he takes into his body, and he can equip them to turn into different, they're essentially combat classes. There's like a healer, there's a magic user, you know, there's a melee character, that sort of stuff. And they level up over time, which is kind of neat. Now, as for traversal in the game, there's no overworld. You just kind of go from location to location on this map, and once you get to the environment, you explore around like you would in any other JRPG. And it's fun, but it's, you know, it doesn't give that grand sense that you do in a game like Final Fantasy X, where you're running through like giant open fields and things like that. Also, the games in this, despite the little wheel, are pretty grindy. You never really get to the point where you feel super overpowered, and you're always kind of struggling along. And that's for several different reasons. The game has not only like a health counter and a mana counter, it has this SP gauge. And it acts like a timer almost. Every action you do subtracts from this SP gauge, and when it gets depleted, your character goes into like berserk mode and starts just attacking the other characters in the party and casting random spells and using random items and stuff like that. And you have to keep up with this SP gauge in addition to your health and your mana. And it's just that having that one extra thing's a lot to keep track of with a 3-party combat system when you only typically have like one healer. Because you gotta keep the mana up, you gotta keep their health up, you gotta keep this SP gauge up, and it's like you'll often find yourself with 2 characters in a support role while only one character is dealing out damage, and that gets really tiring. And it can make even just mundane fights late in the game take 5-10 minutes or something like that. Now, as for the aesthetic and the presentation, there's this kind of Edwardian British style mixed with this cosmic horror and Buddhist spirituality and this Chinese romance of the Three Kingdoms crossover. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's very unique, and I did like the settings, and I liked the environments, and I loved the pre-rendered backgrounds, and the character models look really good. For a game that came out in like 2000, this game really stands out. The music's good, but it can get a little irritating. The combat encounters have this like that it just does over and over and over again, and that crap was driving me insane. It was driving me so crazy. I freaking hated it. I live streamed this game one night, and everybody was commenting about how annoying the combat music was. It was just unbearable after just a few minutes, and the fact that it's like that for hours of the game really grates on you. And some of the other music feels a little out of place with these like fast breakbeats over like droning. Think of like Tibetan chants, which is like going on, and at the same time it's like you're just like, oh my god, stop. What is happening? Am I trying to meditate, or am I trying to like go to a rave? There's this dichotomy between the music, and it was just so bonkers. As for what it's like to really play the game, it's just a standard JRPG with the items that do what you think they do. You know, it's a little all over the place for the first 20 hours or so. And I didn't really get a lot of the significance of what was going on, probably because I haven't played freaking Kudelka. But after 20 hours, the last third of the game, it really opened up and grabbed me. That's when I started really caring about the characters and caring about the story, and really started unlocking skills and spells and stuff that you could use in combat that made things more strategic and fun. So it did redeem itself. It was getting to the point where I kind of hated it, and that's why it took me so freaking long, because I couldn't make myself play for more than 30 minutes where I was like, oh God, I want to go to bed. Like, I'm so sleepy. But the last 10 hours or so I blew through in like a week. It was no issue at all. I wish the whole game had kept up that sort of quality. Now, The game's not perfect, and it is 24 years old. That's a quarter of a century, and there's some things that I don't like about it. The main character, Yuri's a little sexist, and he makes a lot of like sex jokes directed at the women that makes him seem like, you know, he might assault them at any moment, right? Where like, he's like, you're cute. And she's like, I feel like I'm gonna faint. He's like, oh man, you won't know what's gonna happen when you're unconscious. That kind of stuff that's really inappropriate now. It was inappropriate then, but like, we were more likely to let it slide 25 years ago, right? There's also just too much dialogue. Most RPGs have too much dialogue. This is no different. And there's some dated humor that some people might find offensive, and that's okay. Find it offensive. I was offended by a fair amount of it, and I'm not easily offended. They would have to patch a lot of this out if this game came out today, okay? Now, I'm not gonna go in depth what it is. Just be prepared that some of the humor is juvenile and insensitive. There are also a lot of like classic tropes where they introduce a new character and then kill them 5 freaking minutes later. And you're supposed to have like this big emotional response. Like, oh no, like how could they do that to soldier number 7? And they'll also do things like bosses. There'll be bosses where you'll have a 15-minute fight leading up to a boss, and the boss comes out and it just casts instant death on the whole freaking party after like a 10-minute unskippable cutscene. It's like, oh, you were supposed to equip the trinket that doesn't allow them to cast instant death on you. And it's like, how the freaking crap would I know that? Like, unless it's already happened. I didn't know what was gonna happen to the boss, man. I just got here. The last boss is freaking epic. But he's also really frustrating, and it's a long slog. And I used more consumables on this last boss than I have ever used in any RPG. Normally I hoard my consumables, and I'm so glad that I did, because I used like over 100 of them fighting this boss. I did have a good time with it. However, I will say this, there are 2 endings, a good ending and a bad ending. The bad ending is canon. That's the one that the sequel to this game uses. So that's the one you want to go for, believe it or not. For a dated and old JRPG, Shadow Hearts really holds up. And I'm excited to see what the sequels hold. I can't wait to play them. I have all of them, and Kodelka, the first game, which I'm also going to play. If you have the patience for old JRPGs, from like the PlayStation 2 era, you should give this one a shot. It's a classic for a reason. I think you'll really like it. I think you'll like the atmosphere. Shadow Hearts on the PlayStation 2 is an 8 out of 10. It really is great, and I enjoyed my time with it.
So we just finished a portable game, so we're rolling for the next game in the portable backlog. That includes the Switch. So there's some good stuff in here, so we're gonna shuffle. Here we go. What are we gonna get? It's rolling right now. God, I hope it's something good. I hope it's something laid back. The last 2 games they've been hard on me. What do we got here? Be something good, please. Touch the Dead. Is that like a necrophiliac joke?
Up next, we have a handheld game on the Nintendo DS. I picked this game up in the first convention video I ever did. I think it was my first pickup in the video. Now, this isn't my gameplay footage. I can't record from the Nintendo DS. I don't have the fancy recording thing that you need to do it. So this is going to be taken from someone else's gameplay footage. I will give credit where credit is due. Sorry. And it's Touch the Dead. This is a rail shooter on the Nintendo DS with touch screen controls. You would imagine from the freaking name, Touch the Dead. I was hoping that it was from the House of the Dead series, but it's not. Despite the fact it's a zombie shooting game that sounds like House of the Dead, it's not. It's totally from a different developer. Now, you play as some dude who's in prison, and you have to shoot your way out during a zombie outbreak. That's all there is to it. There's no deep plot here. There doesn't need to be. It's a zombie outbreak. You just gotta survive. Now, in the gameplay, you tap the screen with the stylus, and you shoot as the levels kind of auto-progress forward. It's a rail shooter. And you drag the clip from the bottom right of the screen to the left to reload your gun. And it freaking sucks. You have to look away from the screen at the top because it's so small and finicky to actually click on the clip. And then you can't let the stylus slip off of it. And dragging it to the exact spot on the bottom left of the screen is so hard, and it's so finicky, and it causes you to constantly get hit. And it's the major complaint people have about this game. And it's extremely valid. Now, GameFAQs, the site with every walkthrough of all time, had a tip of how to do this on the DS, okay? And let me just show you how it works, okay? You got the 2 screens here, and you're clicking, right? You're clicking on the screen. Now, you can't see half the crap you're trying to click on because your hand's in the way, right? So what they want you to do, and this blows my mind, look at this. They want you to rest your pinky right over the bottom right of the screen and continue to like click, right? And when it's time to reload, just take your pinky and slide it on over, brother. So explain to me how in the ever-loving hell you're supposed to hit like the top left of the screen and then the top right and then just, you're like this the whole time? I couldn't get to work. I couldn't freaking get to work. I will tell you this. The clip in the bottom left is about this big. It's this little corner right here. And it's not even on the corner. You can't even touch the bottom screen. It's like up here. You got to click it and drag it over, which means you got to look down. It's so irritating. I know I'm harping on this, but if you have never tried to reload and touch the dead, it's the worst reloading system I have ever seen in any game. It is terrible. They should have just made it so you just click like R1 or something and it reloads. Why make the thing that takes you away from the action, right? Because you're shooting. Shoot. You have to stop doing the fun thing, which is shooting, to reload the freaking clip, and you make that the hardest and most debilitating thing to do in the game. The thing that takes you out of the action, you make the hardest task. So irritating. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the game. So there's ammo and health hidden in these crates, as well as some upgrades occasionally that are all around the alternate paths in each level. And sometimes you get to select like go left or right or something like that. There are also 3 extra weapons in the game. There's a shotgun, there's a crowbar that I guess you only get late in the game. I never got that far in it. And there's also a machine gun. And you switch between these using the D-pad. Now, ammo is limited except for your pistol. So you're gonna want to stick with the pistol as much as you can because that other ammo is in short supply. There's also this weird limb quota where they want you to like not only do headshots, but also like arm shots and leg shots and stomach shots. And there's a certain number of those you have to do each, and at the end of the level you're rewarded for them. But the problem is you don't know what the freaking quota is until you've finished the level. Is it 80 headshots and 40 limb shots, or is it 40 headshots and 80 limb shots? You don't even freaking know, you already blew it, right? And there's only one save in the entire game, and it auto saves, and all your health carries over between the levels. So if you have a bad level, your whole freaking run is screwed. You need to suicide before the level ends and give it another shot so you don't overwrite your autosave. And I found myself doing this a lot because the game is very unfair and it is super hard. You basically need to have it memorized because you'll turn around and there'll be like 15 zombies standing directly in front of you and you have to know which one's going to attack first. They don't really telegraph it. It's like, I need to kill number 12 and then number 2 and then number 9 and then 1. You know, like what? That's unfair. That's poorly balanced. How would you even know? How would you even know unless you played it like a million times? And you can't get there and practice the levels. Because like I said, it's just one save. You gotta play through the whole game. And despite it being so tense and so hard, it still manages to be incredibly boring. I could never find really any enjoyment even after several hours of playing it. And I hear it's relatively short, but it will take hours and hours and hours of restarting and trying to be able to like memorize everything to be able to get through it. I finally just gave up on it. It's very rare that I just rage quit a game or just stop. I rage quit this game. Like I was furious and I did not like it. So how was Touch the Dead on the Nintendo DS? Well, it was a miserable experience. Touch the Dead on the DS is a 4 out of 10. It's bad. I did not think it was a good game. Most people out there agree with me, but there are a contingency of people that love this game. I hope you're one of those. I'm not. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. If you think I've earned it, do that for me. Subscribe to the channel so you can see more content. There's new videos every Saturday. Give me a like. It's the best way to help me with the YouTube algorithm. And leave a comment. I answer every single one of them. All those messages you saw and the names on the screen you see right now are my Patreon and channel member supporters. For as little as 99 cents a month, they get access to the videos early. They get member exclusive videos. There's a whole bunch of things they can do. And if you want to do those things, well, you can go to the link in the description down below and sign up there. I really appreciate you guys. Every dollar goes back into this channel. And thank you everyone for watching. And I'll see you guys next week.